Well, here we are, everyone. We've made it to the part of the show that I've been most curious about for a while. The final chapter of the original series, at least for the time being. Big World, Big Adventures. The Cars 2 of Thomas, if you will. Personally, I viewed Wubba the same way as that, where it's still very good, but nothing compared to what both the classic and Reddit eras did. This era started off very well with the 2018 movie of the same name, which is still probably in the top 5 in terms of the Thomas films. I'm quite looking forward to jumping into the final 3 seasons. I don't expect classic era quality, of course, but I do expect a interesting time, so to speak. So, without further ado, let's see what the currently final chapter of the original series has to offer. Season 22 was the start of the new era, and while it's not up there with the movie, I still quite enjoyed it. It's not great by any means, but it's still a solid season. Let's start with something that I don't usually do because we've not had it up to this point yet, and that's the international stuff. Yeah, Mattel literally wanted to take Thomas around the world. I honestly thought he wouldn't be able to do it. I just thought, he probably gave up that dream after he got his branch line. But nope, here we are now, with Thomas literally going to the countries in the show. Now, I know these next couple of reviews are going to be possible hot takes given how many people have shitted on this era and ranted about it so many times before, but f*** it, we're going in. The international sets, well, they kinda look basic and are just recolors of Sodor sets, are actually quite nice to look at. Now, this may be because I've never been to these countries either, but they look good. I also love how these international episodes bring back characters we haven't seen since the Great Race. That's probably my favorite thing this era did. Granted, not all of the newbies from the Great Race came back, but a handful did, and I appreciate that. Fleshing out the characters was definitely a smart move. Well, except for Ashima, since she, Flying Scotsman, and Vinny were the only ones to have the spotlight in that movie. Shane's probably my favorite of the returning Great Race characters this season. Shane Jacobson does a fantastic job at the role here, and I love his personality. He's a bit of a jokester, which I really like, and the bassist they picked for him was an amazing choice. Rajiv is basically the Indian equivalent to James, and he's shown to have a bit of a crush on Noor Jahan, which I'll get to in a bit. And I like how Yong Bao acts as the Shifu of the Thomas series, being the one to teach Thomas things in China. It's not really much, relatively speaking, but it's at least nice to have these characters be fleshed out more. And the new international characters were fun too. Anan and Yinlong are quite cute characters. They're basically the China equivalent to Annie and Clarabelle, which is quite neat. And I like the little detail of them knowing a lot of China's roots. Hong may just be my favourite of the international newbies this season. Her design is stunning, and I really love her personality, being all fast and all that, but also putting her competitive nature aside to help a friend in need, which is quite nice honestly. Noor Jahan is there. Not much, honestly. She's the tour guide in India, and that's about it. Shankar, while being a recolor of Ivan, is alright. He's a little too similar to Doc in terms of standing no nonsense from engines. Aubrey and Aiden are neat characters too. It's also worth noting that Aiden's actor, Tim Bain, is one of the writers on the show, particularly with the Australia episodes, which is quite cool. Tamika, Leigh, and Isla have cool designs, but not much to them either. At least they have more going for them than most of the forgettable hit-era characters that were only made for the merch. God, I never would have thought I'd go on about the cross-country episodes for as long as I could have. Anyways, now for the Sodor side of things. We're on home turf, baby! Starting with the animation, as we always do. Like I mentioned in my BWBA review, it's alright, I guess. Gives me Season 5 vibes with how bright it is, but nothing compared to the animation from Seasons 19 to 21. The sets are still solid, though there are times where the animation looks a bit unfinished, but that's all I'll say on that. We only got 2 newbies for Sodor this time around, but I guess that makes sense given how much time the international stuff is spent for half the season alone. Rebecca is probably my favorite newbie this season. I absolutely love her design. It definitely fits in with the aesthetic of the British vibe the show gives out. But my only complaint with Rebecca that I'm sure everyone could agree with me here is that in her debut, she appears out of quite literally nowhere, and then she's just thrown into Titmuss with no build-up whatsoever. Like, what was the point of all that? At least Nia had a whole movie before joining the main cast. That does circle my head whenever I come back to Confusion Without Delay. So, as a result, I don't really love Rebecca's debut episode, but I still like her. Dexter is also a really neat character, not just because he's voiced by former narrator at this point, Mark Morgan, but because of his personality. Despite being left alone in a siding without use, he's still optimistic, which I like. And I like how his debut episode is focused on Doc of all characters, which is surprising given how much focus is given on the international stuff. Yet, despite that, the Sodor episodes are still focused on several side characters, which I really do like quite a bit. On to the episodes now. Quality-wise, it's still solid, but a few changes made to the episodes, aside from half of them being international, is that the runtime of them has been reverted back to being 7 minutes long, like the Hit Era's episodes' runtime instead of 8 minutes 45 seconds like they used to be. And another is quite possibly the worst part of this entire era: the fantasy sequences. It's not even a contest. Honestly, I'd much rather watch all of the magic bullcrap that goes on in Magic Railroad than this. This was made as pure filler, and they serve no purpose other than to pad out the runtime. Granted, they aren't as dragging and ear-grating than the learning segments in the Hit Era, but they are still just baffling. Okay, there are some that are admittedly not bad and kinda funny, like the ones in Counting on Nia, Hud the Truck, and Kangaroo Christmas as examples. But the rest range from either weird or straight up cringy. Aside from that, still a lot of gems this season. Some of my favorites include Number 1 Engine, An Engine of Many Colors, School of Duck, Tiger Trouble, Seeing is Believing, Thomas's Animalock, Hunt the Truck, and my personal favorite, Trusty Trunky. And lastly, for the little things, the music from Chris Renshaw is still very good. though still not up to par with his music from previously. The voice acting is still great for sure though. And yeah, I think it's best we talk about another one of the big changes while we're here. That being Thomas as the narrator. He is literally breaking the fourth wall here. This... I do not understand why they did this. Like, in concept, it's a good idea, and Thomas has told stories to his friends in the past. But in execution, it's not good at all. Thomas makes an introductory and ending segment at the end of every episode. And he narrates the episodes the same way previous narrators used to. This comes as a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it makes sense for Thomas to narrate the international episodes since he was the only Sodor engine there. But on the other hand, when it comes to the Sodor episodes, especially in ones where he doesn't have a major role or doesn't appear in, it just comes off as even more shoehorned. But that can be overlooked. As long as an episode's good, that's all that really matters. At least to me. And as for the songs, they're all solid. The BWBA theme song is actually quite good. Even if it's a rip-off of last season's Set Friendship in Motion. This is basically the No Ordinary Girl of Thomas. Though I prefer No Ordinary Girl for obvious reasons. And honestly, I think that The Journey Never Ends should have been the main theme song for this era. Speaking of the devil, The Journey Never Ends is really damn good. I love the beat it has, and the lyrics are really good. We also got a kind of new version of the engine roll call. Though it's just the one from seasons 19 to 21, but with altered lyrics in some parts to remove Edward and Henry in favor of Nia and Rebecca. This new version is not that good. The altered lyrics in certain parts just come off as quite corporate. Definitely the worst version of the engine roll call for sure. All the Girls Around the World, on the other hand, is great. Probably the best song of the whole season. Great beat, lovely singing, and quite catchy lyrics. And fun fact, the music video for this song is the first time, not counting the Thomas's YouTube World Tour music videos, since Thomas and Percy to include footage from the Nitrogen era. It honestly astounds me how, out of all 8 of the Mattel-owned seasons, it only took until one of this season's songs to include Nitrogen era footage. That's pretty nuts if you think about it. Because as much as I still despise seasons 13 through 16, I can at least appreciate footage from there being thrown in. The Steam team though is so bland. We already have a song about the Steam team, so why bother giving them another one? And Let's Dream, while it talks about the pointless fantasy sequences, is still a nice song, but nothing too special honestly. Oh my god! I never would have thought I'd gone on about this season for as long as I could have. But that just goes to show how much this season has to offer. All in all though, season 22 is pretty solid. It's a very solid start to the new era. But compared to the movie, it feels like a bit of a step back in quality in certain parts. But I still think it's a solid watch. I just hope that I won't have to talk as much about the next 2 seasons. But we'll see. I probably will though, f***'s sake. Season 23 wasn't really that different compared to season 22. Honestly, there's a lot of things this season that are kind of a step back in certain areas. The animation is more or less the same, but I do see a slight improvement. particularly with the Brazilian and Italian sets. They really don't look like reused Sodor sets one bit. There was a clear effort to make them as detailed as possible. Not to mention that Thomas, Gordon, James, Percy, Emily, Bertie, and Balgie of all characters got updated details, including rivets, handrails, footsteps, and license plates in the latter two's case. I know a lot of people aren't too keen on this change, and I can see why. We've been used to these guys not having these types of details for 35 years at this point. 74 if you count the books. But in my opinion, they don't look that bad. It feels weird though, adding them in now and not in like season 19 or something, when they were trying to be semi-realistic. It also feels weird that they didn't do this to Edward and Henry. You'd think they'd do it since they're two of the first characters in the whole franchise, but nope. Speaking of the countries, I like that this season added on 2 more countries in addition to the 3 from last season, those being Brazil and Italy. And the way how Italy looks is just gorgeous. They really put quite a bit of effort into making Italy the best it could be in the show. Just seeing the Leaning Tower of Pizza and the Colosseum in Thomas is just wowing enough. I like how some episodes are focused on some of the international characters, like Rajiv gets an episode to himself, and Shane gets an episode to himself, etc. Which was a nice change than every single international episode of season 22 having Thomas as the lead. The new and returning characters from the 2 countries are so-so. It was great to see Gina and Raul again, and both of their actors do a splendid job of bringing these guys to life, especially in Gina's case. The newbies though are mixed. Gabriella is kinda bland. Not much to say on her, to be honest. Gustavo was pretty neat. I like how he's the Italy equivalent to Gordon. Hell, even the episode knows this. Which is kind of a fourth wall break a little bit. But that might just be me. Lorenzo and Beppe are fun characters for sure. I like their dynamic with each other, and both of their actors do a splendid job as these guys. And Stefano is easily the best international newbie this season. I adore his design. He really puts me in mind of those tour guide buses that could go on land and in water. Sure, it's a bit nonsensical for Thomas standards and may come off as a marketing stunt for toys, but who cares? I've always loved this guy ever since I saw the Diggs and Discoveries 2-parter. And now for the Sodor side of things. This season, we got the return of the pack, which I must say, it was kinda cool seeing these guys return. Not just that, but we also saw the return of Miss Jenny and the introduction of 2 new members, Brenda and Darcy. It was great to finally see Miss Jenny again after so many years. And the 2 new characters are neat additions. Brenda may just be a recolored and gender-swapped Byron, but I like her personality. But I think I like Darcy just a little bit more. Not only is she a unique design for the pack standards, but her personality across the episodes she appeared in is nice. Going from her being a little bit clumsy with her cool as hell spiky arm thing, to her being the sensible type character in Maximonti teaser. Side note on Deep Trouble, by the way. Does this look like the lead mines from season 1 to you, Mattel? Come on, could you at least put in the effort to make it exactly like it was back then? On to the episodes now. This time, we see a change up in the episode format. Not only do the now regular 7-minute episodes revert to having 20 episodes like in seasons 12 through 16, but we also get the addition of 3 double-length episodes, or mini-specials as some people call them. This was definitely a smart move on Mattel's part, as you can still tell big stories within a smaller budgeted production. Like season 22, this season has quite a few gems, but not as many as last season, being honest. Still though, some of my favorites include Free the Roads, Crowding Around, Chuckle Some Trucks, Hearts of Gold, Wish You Were Here, Out of Sight, First Day on Sodor, Deep Trouble, The Dixon Discoveries two-parter, and my personal favorite from this season, Steam Team to the Rescue. I know there's some people out there who aren't too keen on this episode, but I love it. It has its flaws, but it's still an enjoyable watch. But like season 22, it's not without its duds, especially in Panicky Percy's case, which is not only the worst episode of this season, but the BWBA era as a whole. Thomas Makes a Mistake was also an episode I wasn't too keen on. It's not bad, but it just feels like the same thing all over again. And lastly, for little things, the music and voice acting are still the same old, same old. Solid for the music and great for the voice acting. Not much to really say there. The songs are a mixed bag. Legend of the Lost Engine is alright, I think. The Sodor Construction Crew is kinda bland to me. But Don't Stop, on the other hand, is easily the best song of the season, and its placement in Steam Team to the Rescue easily boosted it up a few points. One of the best songs of this era, actually. Well, this season was something alright. Not as solid as season 22, but still a good season all around. It's just that it's kind of a step back in certain places with the quality. Still solid though. And we're now on the home stretch. We have one more season to cover in this marathon. Will season 24 end the original series on a positive note? Well, let's find out. Season 24 is easily the best of the BWBA era. While it's not amazing or anything, I still think it was a really good ending to this era as a whole. And there's quite a lot it did compared to the two seasons that came before it. Like seasons 9, 13, 14, and 19, this season was also made to mark an anniversary. In this case, the 75th anniversary of the Railway series. And it did alright. Not as amazing as what the 70th anniversary did, but definitely better than how the 60th and 65th anniversaries were handled. But I think that this year's anniversary, merchandising wise anyways, was far better than this. I mean, look at the new push-alongs! Look at the new Player Rail Railway Series Thomas, Annie and Clarabelle! They look so good! But I'm getting off topic. Let's start with the basic terms first, just to get them out of the way with, cause I have nothing to say about them now. The animation and music are still solid, the voice acting still great, blah-de-blah-de-blah. I mean, what else do you want me to say about these at this point? They're still good quality, nothing else. I have nothing to say about the sing-along songs. I didn't care about them this time around. Party Train, How Does It Work, and New Year's Day for Thomas are the only songs I've listened to for this season. Fall is so much fun, and The Little Engine Who Believed, I have nothing to say about them. The new characters though, I do have quite a bit to say about. Marcia and Marcio are definitely interesting characters for sure. They're not the best international newbies per se, but they are better versions of Bash and Dash. Ruth is a neat character for sure. I like how she's one of the few American characters in the show. That's neat. And she acts as a great voice of reason to Cleo, who I'll get to in a moment. Plus, she's an inventor, which I don't think we've had in the show up to this point. Correct me if I'm wrong though. Sunny is a great newbie this season, and Joe Swash, yeah, that Joe Swash, does a great job at voicing him. Would have been a great opportunity for Mattel to bring in Stacey Solomon if season 25 was greenlit, since she and Joe Swash are married. But, oh well, at least we got Swash. Plus, I do like Sunny's personality. Yeah, it may be similar to Skiff's in terms of being forced to do something, but I like it nonetheless. Baz and Bernie are actually pretty good villains if I'm being honest. And Kenji was also an interesting character with his cool as hell design. Then we have Cleo. No, not that Cleo. This Cleo. Cleo is one of the most adorable characters in this era. Yeah, her design may come off as unrealistic, but come on! Look at Diesel 10! He's got a freaking claw on his roof, for God's sake! And Harriet Kershaw does a great job at the role here. It makes her all the more sympathetic. Although, I don't really like how her introduction episode comes after Cleo's first snow and release order. Because it's very clear that Cleo's first snow comes after her introduction episode continuity-wise. Other than that, though, they're still great episodes. And they treat Cleo very well, I think. And finally, we have Duchess. She's actually alright. I like her personality of her being anxious getting everything ready, and her being worried about forgetting something. And I really like her livery. We haven't gotten that many engines with a Kree-like livery, and she was a very nice final new character for this series. As for little notes I noticed with the characters, it's cool that they brought back Queen Elizabeth II, albeit it was only for one episode. But it's cool. And I like how her previous appearance is brought up by the other engines. I really like how the only India episode this season is focused on Shankar, who has been a rather tertiary character at this point. That was kinda cool, being honest. And it was about time Emily was finally given a number. And it was definitely earned. Emily to the Rescue was already a really good episode to begin with, but seeing Emily finally receive a number was so satisfying. Oh yeah, and we even got the return of Ace from the Blubber film. And it was so nice to see him again, because I really liked his role in the movie. And here, they gave him a bit of an arc that was hinted at in the movie. That being that he doesn't like animals. But across the episode, he warms up to the animals and finds out that they're not so harmful. That's a fun little arc for Ace. In a really good episode, no less. And we even got to see Hero return in Kenji on the Rails again. And they gave him a nice and very respectful send-off. In another really good episode, no less. And speaking of the episodes, let's get on to those now. For being the final batch of episodes, for the most part, this was a very good batch of episodes, some of which I'd even consider to be the best of the era. Some of my favorites would include Thomas's Fuzzy Friend, The Great Little Railway Show, Emily to the Rescue, Nia and the Unfriendly Elephant, Ace's Brave Jump, Nia's Bright Idea, the Cleo episodes, the Marvelous Machinery two-parter, Please Don't Kill Me, Sunny's Second Chance, Kenji on the Rails Again, Gordon and Rebecca Coming Through, and my personal favorite from this season, Thomas and the Royal Engine, which acted as a really great ending to the original show, continuity-wise anyway. Honestly, the only episode this season I wasn't too keen on was Emily's best friend. I just don't understand why the Steam Team needed to be in pairs, and the sand sculpture was a pretty pointless build, since in Thomas and the Inventor's Workshop, the dinosaur skeleton is there like the episode didn't even happen. Like, what was the point of the sand sculpture? And then we have the final episode in release order, Thomas's Animal Friends. This was actually pretty decent. It's not the best per se, and it may come off as a merchandising stunt, but I'd say it was a decent Final End episode overall. But Royal Engine still wins in terms of being a better series finale. All in all, Season 24 was a really damn good final season of not just the BWBA era, but the show as a whole. At least, for the time being. It's far from perfect, but a 7 out of 10 rating is still pretty damn good. I think I was being a little bit too biased with this season originally, but nonetheless, still a very solid season. A very nice way to cap off the original series. And that concludes the BWBA era. Like I said, I had quite a bit of fun with this era. Yeah, it's not as great as what the Predator era did beforehand, but it's a much more tolerable watch than the Nitrogen era. The quality is still on par with the Predator era, what with the same team working on it, and at least the dialogue feels much more natural than it did in the Hit and Nitrogen eras. It has its problems, like some episodes being really bad, like Apology Impossible and Panicky Percy as an instance. And there are some rather weak episodes, like Forever and Ever, Thomas Makes a Mistake, and Emily's Best Friend as examples. And Thomas being the narrator can be distracting in times when we are so used to the old style of the narration, but they're very far and few between, as a majority of episodes are still really damn good, and at least this era gave us a handful of really damn good characters. It is an absolute travesty though, that what came after this was a huge blow to democracy for this franchise. But at least Mattel did what they could with this era. And with that, we bid farewell to the original series of Thomas. And what a wild ride it has been. Going from the peaks of the first 5 seasons to the wackiness of the BWBA era. Yeah, we've had a few stinkers, but hey, 24 total seasons and only 5 really bad ones? I'll take it. This show has done so much over its 37-year run. And not just that, but this show has meant so much to me over the years. There were times where I took a break from the franchise, but all in all, this show has stuck with me through thick and thin. As I've stated before, this series was the biggest part of my childhood. I had watched countless other TV shows, let alone kids shows, in my lifetime, mainly around the late 2000s. But none of those could ever compete with this absolutely legendary TV show. It inspired me to create my own content on YouTube, to think creatively, to think outside the box when it comes to new story ideas. And all I have left to say is, thank you, Thomas, for all you have done for me and many others over the years. You may have your duds, but no matter what, you have always put a smile on many people's faces around the world. Thank you so much, Thomas, for being my childhood hero.